Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant podcast. My name is Brett Endies. I'm a professional dog trainer. I am your host, and today is episode 89. This podcast is a dog training podcast for you if you're a dog owner looking for dog training advice, if you're a client in the real world seeking supplementary information to what we've been working on, and if you're just anyone interested in dog training, dog behavior, the life and rants of a professional dog trainer, this podcast is for you. I always ask, please rate, review, share, subscribe, tell people, let me know how this podcast has helped you. Send me questions, dogtrainingla@gmail.com. And if I can help you, I've been doing online training sessions during the COVID pandemic, and they have been working out wonderful, where I coach you with your dog while demonstrating with my own, and we've really been getting some great work done with my clients here. And you can contact me as well via email or on social media, and I would love to help you. With that all said, let's talk about today. So I wasn't quite sure of what we're going to talk about. I have a little bit of a car ride here, which has been a rare thing as of late because of COVID. I'm not driving from house to house like I used to. But I figured I'd talk about, because what I'm doing is, as most people know at this point, I live in Colorado. I used to be in Los Angeles. I was traveling back and forth to service my clients in Los Angeles, and because of COVID, I've been unable to do that. So I see my clients from Los Angeles remotely. Here in Colorado, I do social distance training, board training, and still I do online consults as well. But nonetheless, I live here. We live in a nice space, but I'm looking for more space. We have about 3 acres, and I'm looking right now. I'm headed to go check out a 40-acre parcel about an hour into the mountains from where we currently live. And the reason why is we just want to have more room to grow for the dogs. There's limits because we are, even though it's in the mountains, and it would seem to most people from the city very, very rural where we are, it's still considered suburbia in Colorado terms. So there's a lot more limits to like how many dogs we can have. I'd like to get into breeding. I can't do that on the property I have. Neighbors are a little closer. It doesn't seem that, we hear them. So we're probably going to keep a space at our current home, rent out the other part of the house because we can segment into an apartment, and then have this and start building on this property and kind of homesteading that. Again, just taking a look. So I figured, with all that said, all this long-winded going off on a tangent, I want to talk about off-leash freedom for your dog. Today I posted a couple videos demonstrating a dog that stayed with me for boarding and training, Leonardo the Doodle. We're doing some recall work. I've taught it to him. I did some work with him when he was a younger dog. The owners didn't really follow through consistently, so we wanted to re-establish some of that. Now that we've got him responding, we were just doing some proof work where he's at a certain distance or level of distraction off leash, where I started using the e-collar, and it was really just advanced him to the next level where I can trust his response to not take off so he can curb his own impulses. So I have a recall that is going to go beyond just having the leash on him, because I always say, and I say in these videos, a lot of dogs, you can get the job done just by practicing recall and developing it and phasing to off leash and long leash and all that, and you're good. Many a dog, they are smart and they know there's a limit to the leash or not a leash or the equipment, or how far you get from them, and you need something technology based that can work in your favor as long as it's humane, fair, and you've done the work to teach them, and now you're encountering these limits. So the e-collar, and if you go to my social media on Instagram or Facebook, you can see that. But it's really the point I'm making is that sometimes you have to do the work to get the off-leash freedom. Now, there's dogs who just inherently stay with you. They listen. They come when called. It's just that's how they get it. Most dogs I see as clients are not as easygoing. They don't respond as quickly. They've learned habits of letting their impulses drive them instead of conscious listening, especially when you ask them to, like with a command like come. So this is what you want to work on. And this is with a puppy, it's almost essential, or I would recommend you do it to make it essential. Or with an adult dog that has these type of problems or habits related to being off leash. As I said, you got to do the work. It might take a couple months of consistency back with a leash. So first you want to do is teach your dog to always check in, right? So let's say you get to a place, I like to go to this hiking trail, and one day I want to hike off leash if it's an allowed place, or we go to an open space and dogs can roam, but you don't want your dog taking off, or if they get into this problem or have an issue with another dog who may have a problem, you want to have that control to call them away. So you want to just maybe start by teaching them to tune in by engaging them with a good heel, doing some duration sit and down training, which I talk about in many, many podcasts. It's building focus, building the 3Ds, how long they can hold a command, how long a dog can walk at your side and not veer off or get distracted by what's going on around them. Set the tone for that type of environment. Focus is promoted. And then even if, let's say, there is like a fenced in off-leash area, the training and focus would come first, and then listening, and then even then you would start practicing the next level, which is now they're off not focusing, and you teach them skills like a recall, how to retract back to you whenever you need. You build the distance, the level of distractions, and situations like that. So I do a lot of videos showing the recall and separate podcasts explaining it too. So you want to lay these foundations, and everything should be on a leash unless it is 100% guarantee your dog's going to listen. Why? You're losing consistency. You're not going to get Pavlov's dog if 99 out of 100 times the bell doesn't ring, you know what I mean? Or the bell rings and the food isn't delivered. That's why you use high value treats and you start giving more treats and praise for increased performance. It's not like you have to sit there with a pouch every time in the future you want your dog to off-leash recall, but you better put in the balanced training techniques and use the right equipment. Now, you did that. Your dog's great. You drop your leash because these are all techniques to phase to off-leash. Your dog runs off, but they know with the 30-foot leash dragging, they can go 100 feet. But when you call them, they'll respond because they know you're going to come pick it up. That's all working great, and that might be how you're going to enjoy off-leash with your dog for a while, doing the leash drag, a shorter leash drag, even if you don't need a 30-foot leash, but maybe something so you can keep your dog safe, back up any commands and requests you make so that you have the follow-through, with the actual leash. And sorry, we're in a little traffic situation here. And you're just keeping that consistency. Now, let's say you get there and your dog's good and your dog just is proofed off leash and you're good. Maybe you'll hit a limit of a distance or they see some kind of new distraction they've never encountered. That's where you may have to go back to using the equipment, the leash. But let's say your dog's smart. Okay, as soon as that leash comes off, they know the difference or they listen better when the leash is on. That's where you want to maybe advance to something like an e-collar, electronic collar. People call it a shock collar. And they really aren't when used skillfully. Now, I've walked into situations where the prior trainer or the owner got one of these, put it on them, told them to come. If they didn't come, they zapped them on a high level and motivated them to run away from the shock to get to them. That's not real training. That's scare motivation. You can get me to do something. I could probably play concert piano if you put a friggin' gun to my head, but that's somehow kind of an inorganic motivation. It's based on a fear response, which is what a lot of people think e-collar training is. And it's not. Using it with balanced training methods to condition a dog to the proper response while you incrementally tap in their learning theory, right? I hope I explained that very well so all you science-based people can hear me. That's an inside training joke for all you non-dog trainers. So the e-collar, right? I use only one, and I'm sure there's more that are at that level now, but I shied away from them. I started using e-collars, just go on a little sidebar. Back in 95, I learned to be a dog trainer. They were originally used on hunting dogs, and they had a high, medium, and low level. That was it. And you would just adjust it, but you'd have to take the collar off, reset little pins, like the old school little electronics would work, where you had to send a different circuit and then sync it with the remote to the transmitter to receiver. Sorry, I had a burp there. Gross. And then what you do is then you would reset and do it again. And the levels were 3 levels, that's it. Now, the one I use called the Mini Educator, it looks like a yellow hockey puck you'll see me and a lot of other trainers holding. That has 100 levels and a vibrate level, and it uses what's called medical grade stimulation. And that's the same exact as you would get if you went to a chiropractor and they put those pads or little probes, the little sensors on you, and it would twitch your muscles to release the tension, right? The muscle tension. That's all it does. It twitches their muscles. And what I found is if you put the time in most cases, you're going to use a level on a dog that would be undetectable. So we're not saying like, oh, people feel it, maybe a dog, it hurts them. People wouldn't even feel it. It's just a dog is more sensitive to that tingling sensation. And when you call them with something they know and you correct them for not responding and the outcome gets what was taught to them, they learn to avoid that correction because it's an annoyance, it's an unknown. That's why I say it's getting inside their head. It's not motivating them by pain. And it is a good way to have that guarantee. It even can just stop a dog in their tracks if your dog bolts. When I moved to my property, I've talked about this before, we have deer. My dog's never seen deer before. They didn't encounter that. So we had to just make sure with that new distraction. So I used e-collars, and anytime they get too alert, I'd call them back. And if they didn't respond right away, I just use vibrate on them. That's all they needed because they're so well trained. I put in the time. And now I don't need to use it. They respond because they've learned anytime they show too alert of a response to that distraction, the recall had to happen. So that was their normal response to check back in and move in my direction, not towards the distraction, teamed up with a correction if they don't listen. So their brain learns the pathway to the quickest way to get to the end means, which is the command, come, running to me, sitting in front of me, and holding it until I release them. So this all, again, explaining it is the theory. If you watch videos where I demonstrated this all come together, go on my YouTube channel. I think it's youtube.com, Dog Training LA, all these places. I'm going to try to be a little more active in social media if I can, but I'd love the feedback to know that it's helping. But this, again, e-collars shouldn't be vilified the way that a lot of people see them. Sure, any tool can be used wrong. You can overfeed a dog with treats, right? You can pull on a slip lead. You can harnesses. I've seen many a dog's shoulders with physical problems and their skin raw from pulling on it because the owner was so afraid, or the trainer recommended don't put anything on the dog's neck instead of teaching focus on the walk, right? I've seen dogs that, it's just, you got to use whatever. I've seen people who just overlove their dog. They give them too much human food. They're overweight. It's just so many things that we would non-interpret as abuse that are really what abuse is. Mental abuse, physical abuse in ways that people's emotions don't let them understand what reality is versus what they think is better for their dog, and it's only hurting them, right? So take that as you may. But I figured since we're going to the big open space, and maybe hopefully in the near future, there'll be more footage of us enjoying a big open space with dogs, even though we have a nice big open space and I'm kind of spoiled as it is. I figured I'd talk about how to enjoy that with your own dog. And the other thing too, just as a note of responsibility, if you are in a location where leash laws apply, it doesn't matter how well trained your dog is. You are required to keep your dog within a 6 foot. Now, I'm not sure how it works with remote collars, to be honest. Maybe if you can demonstrate a range, but I also know that it might freak other owners out. Like my Rottweiler's off-leash trained, and I just know when it's on-leash places and people don't want to potentially, is that dog going to come up to me or not? It's a big dog. Because it's responsible, it's called being a member of society. Now, if you find the place where they're off-leash or if you have a property, that's great. I also would really, really, really recommend keeping your dog under control so your dog doesn't run off to other dogs that may be walking by on leash if it's not an appropriate environment. So just be responsible even when you're enjoying the off-leash, and just be a conscious dog owner no matter how well you perceive your dog to be listening or good at their commands. Okay, thanks again. Please rate, review, share, subscribe. Not enough people are doing it. This podcast is not really that well ranked like it used to, but I'd love to get it back up there and get more people listening, and that's really what it does. I'm not monetizing it. I've tried to do Patreon. You can sure go to the Dog Savant on Patreon, but if not, just tell a friend. Let me know it helps you. Rate, review, all that stuff. Subscribe, and that'll help me anyway. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.